We're just waiting for Mr. Davis. I saw he wanted to enter the room. I thought I let him in, but now I don't see him. I don't know, Mrs. Ober, if you can call Mr. Davis and see if he's going to be available.
He's muted, Judge.
I don't see him on the screen.
She's trying to talk, but she's muted.
Sorry, I didn't know that was on mute.
Okay, so can you call?
No, he called. Sorry, I'm sorry. He called me a little while ago, so I know he's trying. But if I try to call him, it's going to get me off because I'm on my phone.
All right, because he was up here asking to be admitted. I clicked on, but now I don't see him.
Yeah, we had a problem last time in his office. Well.
So, bro, I'm going to send you a chat. If you could give me his phone number, I'll call him.
Okay.
But put it in the chat. Hold on.
I may have it. Try 936.
1 second, Judge. Yes, sir.
262 7474.
Judge, it went to somebody else's voicemail, but I left a message anyway.
Let me see if I have another number. Did it sound like it went to a voicemail in the law firm?
It said Randy somebody. I don't remember what the last name was now.
Again, that was 936-262-7474.
That's correct.
Oh, he's texting right now. It may knock me off if I do this, but I'll try it. Yes, they're waiting on you. He's trying to get on right now. He can't see the judge. Yes. He's working on it. Sorry.
All right.
Judge, I apologize. I must have had the wrong Zoom link.
Okay. All right. So go ahead and get started. This is cause number 2018L 7108, the matter of the marriage of Kimberly Kagan and David Kagan. Mr. Davis, if I can get you to announce.
Yes, Your Honor. Nicholas Davis and Lee Wilson for Kim Zober.
And Mr. Kagan, if you'd announce yourself.
Yes, David Kagan and Danny Thompson, CPA.
All right, so we were here in March and had a hearing, and there were some orders entered as far as things to produce. We're here today for an entry. So, Mr. Kagan, I'll let you give some explanations in just a minute. But as far as the order for the clarification, Mr. Kagan, what's your objections to the order?
Your Honor, the proposed order is beyond excessive in scope. They're asking me to produce probably 10,000 plus pieces of paper to support a simple tax return. And I mean, it's with contempt implications. So they've thrown this net out that is broad and as wide as they could. and there's no way for me to meet that sort of obligation. And it's not only is it too impossible to meet, but it's unreasonable when we're trying to just simply wrap this thing up. And so, you know, simply put, you charged me with being responsible for the 2018, 2019 taxes, which I'm happy to do. But now this has turned into, you know, how big and wide can they make this? I mean, Kim has no dog in this hunt, if you will. I'm responsible for everything. It's just, this is being used as a tool of harassment on her part. And so hiring Mr. Wilson to throw this net across me, and then knowing that I cannot produce that, it's just going to end up turning into a next thing will be a motion for contempt because I couldn't produce, you know, 100 documents for every receipt for years. I mean, it's ridiculous when we want to I'm trying to get this put to bed, and Mr. Thompson can testify to what he's already provided and what is reasonable. And we're just hoping today that you would hear that and narrow the scope, that we can get this done and dusted.
Okay, and a lot of that is what we heard back in March. So looking at the proposed order that Mr. Davis has, your objection to this order is just that it's excessive. The things that are listed on page 3 and 4, 5, and 6 are just excessive.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Mr. Davis is not approaching this as a public servant, but as a servant to himself. And yes, it's way excessive. It's beyond excessive. It's beyond reasonable. And Mr. Thompson can attest to that. I mean, as he's you know, himself worked as a CPA for umpteen years, and in the IRS, this is beyond the scope of even an IRS audit.
And I know when we were here back in March, there was some discussion, I think, between Mr. Wilson and perhaps Mr. Thompson as what is needed, and the two of them were talking. So let me just start off with, so Mr. Wilson, have you been able to communicate with Mr. Thompson about what documents are needed?
I have in the past, Your Honor. I have not since our prior hearing, simply because I didn't believe, after discussions with him, that it was going to bear any fruit as far as what we really needed. And that's because in prior discussions with him, I've tried to get source documents, et cetera, and he hasn't been able to really produce those source documents. I don't think that that's Mr. Thompson's doing or decision. I think it's a lack of those documents from his client. All I've been able to get were essentially general ledgers, and those general ledgers themselves, frankly, Your Honor, are not reliable. There's multiple general ledgers that have been produced to us, and they're inconsistent in several areas. And frankly, they contain items that wouldn't be deductible on the return anyway, because they're not business related. Some entries that are clearly that, because they apparently weren't fixed, and you know, for whatever he wanted them to be. But I've got several notations of those from the exhibits that I can go over with you if you like. But the bottom line is, what we've asked for here is a broad, while it seems very specific and detailed, really what it does is it hits all the major line items on these returns, so that it would be specific enough so that Mr. Kagan would have to produce these documents and the supporting documents, which frankly, he says he's contending they're overbroad. These are all documents that Mr. Kagan would have to have access to, really, in order to verify any expenses that an IRS audit would want to see him produce. Even though an IRS audit typically involves a sampling, right? A sampling of documents, a sampling of expense support, or things like that. Everything that he's included on this general ledger, he got from somewhere. So that's all we're asking. They produced general ledgers that are essentially a summary of expenses that they've incurred or they purport to have incurred. But there's enough inconsistencies in those general ledgers and things, frankly, that wouldn't be deductible on a return to raise enough red flags for me that I can't do my job and advise my client to sign a return when I know that that's the information we're getting that's being taken from that general ledger and put onto a return.
And Your Honor, regarding the order, just so if I may, I tried to keep this exactly with what you said. We needed to make it specific or else there's going to be there's wiggle room to get around it. So really, it's a very short order until we get into some of the specifics. It's simply produce all the documents, source documents you utilize to prepare your tax returns that you've produced. That's not hard. That's real simple. And I think the court's well aware of what the rules of discovery are. If the document doesn't exist, he doesn't have to create one, but that certainly tells us something. If he's got an item listed that's got a number to it and he can't produce a document, then our client that is required to sign this joint return can't sign it. And if we can't sign it, we can't sign it. I guess we'll have to deal with that with the IRS. But the truth of the matter is all we're asking him to do is produce what documents he relied upon to produce his tax return. He's got 3 different general ledgers for the same years he's produced. I submitted those as exhibits. They've changed from time to time with different deductions. I'm very curious about how a return could be produced without any supporting documents when you've got 3 different ledgers that have been produced. It seems like there might be some due diligence requirement on that. The rest of it, Your Honor, was simply done out of enforcement purposes to show that the order was specific. The order actually goes through and identifies, produce all the copies of these certain documents for line item 1A for the 11/20 tax return 2019, just to make it clear enough that if we did have to enforce it, we could do it. But the truth is if the document doesn't exist, he can just tell us they don't exist. There's no requirement to create it.
Okay, so let me hear from Mr. Thompson. What's your response to all this?
Well, it's kind of along the lines of what Mr. Wilson said. We have not touched base with each other since the hearing. I just put together that the thing where it would make it simpler to finish the tax returns if we did the general ledgers, the most current general ledger. I provided him with a copy of the tax return for 2019. We're not dealing with 18 yet because that's a totally different issue as far as distributions and making amended returns on 18. My suggestion was all the bank statements, all the credit card payments, not all the credit card, but all the credit card statements, all the bank statements, and then all the W-2s and W-3s and 941s. And then perhaps, as Mr. Wilson said, maybe start out as perhaps the IRS would do, is make a sampling of the general ledger accounts that they wanted to just pull out a sample. And then Mr. Kagan provide detailed documentation on the sample. And if that didn't bear scrutiny, then go to the next step and just go in and look at everything. That would be what I was thinking. And they're not going to file a joint return in 19. So that's kind of a moot issue, except it revolves back to the corporation's income for Ms. Kagan.
Right.
So that was my suggestion. And I will leave that up to the court to decide.
About what you already provided.
Mr. Wilson, do you have something else?
No, what I wanted to say was that I wanted to address a couple of other points, Your Honor, that Mr. Kagan had raised. First of all, he indicated that some of this was broader than an IRS audit. Well, I can tell you that I deal with those audits every day, and some of this language that's in this order, I've taken directly from information document requests that are provided to me by the IRS in virtually every audit I get. Okay, specifically with regard to the questions related to, or the question related to the QuickBooks file. That's language straight from IRS information document requests. So it's not overly broad. As far as the sampling and all those things go, that's something that I would be amenable to. But we'd like to be able to get at least copies of all the statements and all those things that we have in 941s and all those things we have not been provided. The other thing he mentioned, that Kim's not on the hook for anything. He is. Well, I understand why he believes that, but here's the issue. If an incorrect return is filed, Kim, as a shareholder of that entity, per the rules, the audit rules, and how it relates back to S corporations and all those things, she technically is on the hook if there's later any issues with that return, while the court here can order him to pay that. If he, for some reason, doesn't, the IRS doesn't really doesn't really, I guess, honor a court order when it comes to who's responsible for payments, when it comes to all those things. Does that make sense? So they will go after whoever is potentially on the hook, regardless of what the court orders say. So that's why it's so important that we get this information that we need so that we can file a return. And frankly, like I said, the documents we have gotten, we have not gotten what Mr. Thompson just mentioned. We have not gotten anything close to that, all the statements, cards, all those things yet, to be even able to pick out anything we would need. Frankly, what we have gotten, as I said, are those general ledgers that there's multiple inconsistencies that raise serious red flags with regard to just things that shouldn't be deducted on a business tax return.
Your Honor, and here's the thing. I mean, while this sampling thing sounds great, here's the issue. They gave them a chance to produce things. They failed to produce what was requested. And just so the court's aware, Mr. Kagan is the one that set this time frame. He filed the enforcements. And so because we wanted to not waive anything that might have been before the court, we filed our clarification to have that heard at that time frame. So he kind of cut that period short. And quite frankly, I think this court's a little tired of going back and forth with these people. We need to get an order that's specific. This is not hard, and make it and get it done. Mr. Kagan's already chomping at the bit, Judge, to set another hearing on his enforcements. He's already asked your coordinator for more dates. So, and he's trying to extort hundreds of thousands of dollars out of my client to settle those claims, to keep her from jail.
Your Honor.
So we're a little tired of it. We need to get an order entered that's specific, because I think you've known these two for quite a while, Judge.
Your Honor, actually, I'm going to allow Danny Thompson to respond to part of what Mr. Wilson just said, which is untrue. Danny Thompson has provided documentation to them. And secondly, what Mr. Davis is saying is completely untrue. I mean, he's coming at me and look, Kim has sent pictures of envelopes that are addressed to the IRS, threatening myself and Danny Thompson that she's bringing the IRS down on us. I mean, she's done everything and anything she can, then turn around and hire Mr. Wilson over here to expand it even further. I mean, we're just trying to put this to bed. And Mr. Davis wants to come in like he's a white knight here, and all of a sudden
Your Honor, the filibuster technique of Mr. Kagan is getting old.
I finished it. I
Okay, Mr. Kagan, if you can sum up here in a couple minutes.
Yes, Your Honor. I mean, the thing is please, you've been in with this situation long. I've done everything I can to resolve this in a timely manner, but can you please speak to Mr. Thompson one more time on documentation that he has provided, and give him some clarity so that he can actually refute some of these what I would say half truths by Mr. Wilson, please.
Okay, well, and again, a lot of this is going to be between Mr. Thompson and Mr. Wilson to exchange documents.
Yes.
To get this done. But
Your Honor, could I say something?
Okay, real quick.
This is Mr. Thompson.
Go ahead.
Mr. Wilson did not say that we had not provided him information. What he said was the information that Mr. Kagan had not provided were these source documents. So I wanted to clear up that misunderstanding, because Mr. Wilson did say general ledgers and tax returns were provided. So I just want to clear that up.
Okay. All right. Well, the order that was presented, follows what I ruled on March 22nd. So I'm going to sign this order. And again, Mr. Thompson and Mr. Wilson, it's going to be up to the two of you to get together and exchange these documents.
So, Your Honor, so if I'm understanding correctly, if I don't have a electronic backup of a accounting file, then they're going to be able to bring me forward in contempt, though I do not possess one. Is that correct?
No, I think what Mr. Davis said was correct. Is if you don't have something, then you don't have it. So you don't make something up. But
that's fine.
Your response may be that you don't have it, and then if there's an audit later on, it would come back, and that would be the testimony that you don't have something.
All right, Your Honor.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you.
Are we excused?